information. Okay. Step-by-step information on how to execute a particular task, right? So an existing standard operating procedure, it may need to just be modified or updated, or you can also be in a scenario where you have to write an standard operating procedure right from the scratch, right from the beginning, right? So that's where we looked into how do we come up with a standard operating procedure for anything you think of, any procedure within your organization. So that's where we discussed that it is divided into three main parts. Yes, just a moment. I'll share the entire this thing. Yes, three main parts. That is formatting of the SOP, writing of SOP, and ensuring success and accuracy with respect to the standard operating procedure that you have created. Now, again, in formatting of your SOP, we discussed about 6 steps, right? Wherein, first of all, you need to choose your format, right? It could be a simple step format or a hierarchical step format or a flow chart. Then you have to essentially, next point is essentially you have to keep in mind who is going to be your audience be. Okay, so that's where have an idea about the audience. Okay, whether they are aware of the terminology, whether the language that you need, that you will be utilizing for writing down your SOP, it should be understandable easily, as well as applicable. Whatever you saw, if they have understood the procedure, surely they should be able to apply. Then consider your audience's language abilities and the size of your audience while writing an SOP. Third step was consider your knowledge. So this is all with respect to whether you are the right, not the right, but you could be a right person, but for writing a standard operating procedure, essentially, you have to be the best person for writing down the process or the procedure. Only then you are able to pick up the minute details with respect to the procedure, right? Then decide whether you would be opting out for a short or long form for writing your SOPs, right? Then apart from, that's where we also discussed that apart from the basic purpose and relevant information, it's really a, what you can say, a list of steps that you are putting down. Okay. So these steps where no further clarification would be required to be given, and that would be easier to follow when people are aware of, if the audience is aware of the process or the procedure on which you are preparing your SOP. And keep your SOP purpose in mind. What is the purpose for which essentially you are creating the SOP? Okay, so in order that this SOP could be utilized for the success of your team, we discussed, that's where we had stopped last time. It is necessary to ensure that in case there are any compliance standards that are required to be met, say from the perspective of quality control or things like that, see to it that they are met. It ensures that the procedure has no adverse impact on the environment. Ensure the safety with respect to the people, with respect to the materials, with respect to the equipments that are going to be used, and ensure that everything goes as per the schedule. Okay, by preventing the failures in the manufacturing processes. Okay, so if you know what your standard operating procedure should emphasize, then it will be easier to structure your writing around these points. So that's where we had stopped with respect to part 1, that is formatting and SOP. And then we said that next time we'll be discussing essentially with respect to part 2, that is writing of the SOP. So now that's where we start with step number 6, okay, or step number 1 of part 2, whereas first is cover the necessary material. Okay, in general, technical SOPs, if you are coming up with, they will consist of 4 major elements as a part of it, whereas as it shows the title page, table of contents, quality control, and the reference. Now the title page, again varying from business organization to business organization, it will essentially include what is the title of the procedure that for which you are preparing the SOP. Okay, in case there are n number of procedures that are required to be followed in an organization, then what is the SOP identification number of the procedure that you are writing out. Then the date of issue, in case you are coming up with a first SOP, the date on which it is being prepared. In case you are revising an existing SOP, then what is the date of revision. Okay, next comes the name of we can say the department or branch or division for which you are preparing, or which takes care of the procedure for which you are preparing the SOP. So essentially the department to which it applies to. Okay, then the signature of the people who are into preparation and approval of the SOP. And then, so as far as the information is clear, then this can be formatted in whichever way you like. But as we discussed, a standard technical SOP will essentially consist of first, that is a title page. Then we come to table of contents. So now table of contents is just necessary. It's just an index. Okay. Only necessary if your SOP is a long format that you have picked up. Okay. Allowing for ease of reference. So what has to be referred on what page number? A simple standard outline is what you would find over here. Okay, with respect to the contents. Then quality assurance and quality control. So a procedure will not be essentially called as a good procedure if it cannot be checked out, if it cannot be verified, in short. So have the necessary materials and the details provided within the SOP so that the reader can make sure that they have obtained the desired results by following your SOP. Now, this may or may not include other documents like the performance evaluation samples for the purpose of checking the quality, okay, or assuring the quality and so on. So this is third content is for quality assurance, and then is reference. So be sure while preparing the SOP that you're putting the list of all the cited or significant references. So if you reference other SOP, then if you are saying that it is with this respect to this SOP that it has been created, then be sure to attach the information in the appendix as well. Okay, so your organization may have different protocol than this, what has been given in the necessary format that we are discussing. But then if there are already pre-existing SOPs you can refer to, then you need not follow this structure. Then you can keep on making revisions to the existing SOPs, because the SOPs are created as per the requirement of the organization itself. Right, then you need not come up with a new one, need not look into the format, then you can keep on revising the existing one itself. Okay, so cover the necessary material. Okay, what essentially goes into the SOP has to be taken care of. Then next step is, yes, for the procedure itself, make sure that you are going to cover all of these mentioned below. First is, what is the scope, okay, of your SOP? Okay, to where, what are the areas to which it applies to, and the applicability. So in other words, describe the purpose of the process. Okay, what are the limits and how it's to be used. Now, if required, include the standards, the regulatory requirements, roles and responsibilities of the personnel attached, the inputs and the outputs, okay, from the process, and so on. Second is methodology and procedure. Okay, you can say that this is the crux. List all the steps with necessary details, including what equipment is needed. Then cover the sequential procedure, okay, in the entire process, and where exactly decisions are required to be made by the authorities for the continuation of the processes. Okay. Further, once you know this, address the what ifs, okay, and the what if this happens, okay, and the possible, what you can say, safety considerations that are required to be kept in mind, okay, while carrying out the necessary procedures. Okay. Next step is clarification of terminology. So wherever you are utilizing abbreviations, acronyms, so all of them need to be clearly defined, explained. Then we come with respect to health and safety warnings. Now to be listed in its own section and alongside the steps where it is an issue. So for uh, in case any of the steps you have to take care of certain safety warnings, then next to the process itself you should be having those, so to see to it that they can be implemented. Okay, so now do not you cannot just put this health and safety warnings wherever you would like to put it. No, it has to be with reference to the processes that you are referring to. Only then it will be taken care of. And then equipment and supplies, right? So complete the entire list of on what equipment you will be working, what are the supplies that you will be required in order to carry out that procedure efficiently and effectively. Where to find the equipment, what are the standards of the equipment that are required to be met, and so on and so forth, right? So this is with respect to the procedure itself that you are writing down. Then we look into the next step, that is make your writing concise and easy to read. So now audience that will be essentially reading the standard operating procedure that you are preparing, okay, they are not going to uh, read this for fun. Okay, you want it, so it's not that they are having ample time and they are going through this just for the sake of uh, enjoying what is being mentioned there into, right? So you would rather prefer to keep it very much short and clear. Okay, otherwise what will happen is that the attention of the audience will stray over and they will find the document very difficult to be understood. Okay, hard to be grasped and then work on. So in general, there is an example that has been given. So a bad and a good example. You make sure that you clean out all the dust from the air shafts before you begin using them. Okay, so instead of putting this, that you make sure that you do this, you just put in precise manner, vacuum all dust from air shafts before use. So this could be the language that could be utilized. We don't want any negativity. We don't want any instructions on and often to be given. So that's being done by the supervisor also. How come you are different than them? Right? So better mention what is required. So that's where you need to be very short, concise, okay? And it shouldn't appear, it should just give the procedure, what needs to be done, and not the instructions as if a supervisor is there telling you what is to be done next, right? So make your writing concise and easy to read. Next step, step number 9. If necessary, if at all you feel that it is required, interview the personnel involved in the process and how they execute the task. So the last thing or the best thing that you would want to do is write an SOP that is just plain a one which is an accurate one from your perspective. Okay, then you could be compromising on the safety of your team or their efficacy, their time, and you are taking an established process and not paying it any mind, something your teammates may find a little offensive. So if you need to ask questions, okay, you want to get the things right as in how they are being performed. So what you could be doing is, if even if you are not the best person to do it, but you have been assigned the task by your seniors, by your authorities, then it's always better to come down to the person who is actually involved in doing the task, rather than just making estimates or carrying down your own assumptions of doing the task. It's always better to come down, sit with the personnel, and then list down the points that actually take place in the process, right? So even a supervisor would not be a right person to one who takes care of the entire team. No, it is a person who is actually working on it. You should be involving the person, because he is the one who is knowing the tricks of the entire game, right? Once this is done, then break up the large chunks of text with diagrams and flowcharts, so that it becomes very much easy to understand, instead of wasting the time of the employees or the people or the audience who will be referring to your SOP. Okay, reading through takes a lot of time, attention. Okay, uh, instead it would be better if you put it in a pictorial form, right? So if you have a step or two that are particularly intimidating, make it easy on your readers with some sort of a chart or a diagram, a flow chart like thing. It makes it easier to read and gives the mind a brief picture, okay, from trying to make sense of it all. So it will appear more complete and well written for you if you come up with such flowcharts and picture which are self-explanatory, okay, which gives a bird's eye view of whatever you would like to mention in your standard operating procedures. So another important thing is, you shouldn't be including this just to increase the size or increasing the bulk of your SOP. Only you will be doing this if it is necessary, okay, or if you are trying to, what you say, explain it in a much better format. It's not a must that every step that you are writing has to be accompanied by a flowchart. No. Okay, wherever you feel that language is falling short of, or symbols will be a better way to represent a SOP, only that's a place, that's where you will be using this diagrams and flowcharts. And then make sure that each page has a control document notation. So your SOP, okay, your SOP is probably one of the many standard operating procedures that an organization would be having. Okay, and because of this, your organization has some type of larger database cataloging everything within a certain reference system. So your SOP is a part of this reference system essentially, right? And therefore it needs some type of a code in order to be found out. So document control notation. That's where the notation comes into the picture. So each page should have a short title or an ID, or you can say a revision number, a date, okay, and pages from this to this, or part of this page of this entire, what you can say, section, okay, in the upper right hand corner. It's always better to have for each and every page of yours, okay, for most of the formats. So you may or may not need a footnote, okay, depending upon the preference of your organization. Should you be mentioning it in the footnote, or should you be mentioning it in the topmost rightmost corner of every page? Okay, so a document control notation for each page is a must. So now this is all about writing down a standard operating procedure. That's what we looked into part 2, right? So now coming to part 3. Now part 3 essentially speaks about, yes, just a moment. Yes. Part 3 essentially speaks about ensuring the success and the accuracy of the standard operating procedure which you have already put down. Penned it out, right? So yes, step number 1 in part 3 would be testing your procedure. If you don't want to test your procedure, then probably you haven't written it well enough. That's the only point where you don't want to get it tested, right? So you can have someone with a limited knowledge of the process, okay, or a person who is a representative of a normal reader who can use your standard operating procedure to guide them. Okay, so what issues did they come across while doing so? If any, then these issues, okay, could be addressed and necessary improvements could be made in your standard operating procedure. Then next thing is, other way it could be, it's a best to have, you can say, a handful of people. Yes, who is this? Can you mute yourself, any one of you? Yes, thank you. So either have someone with limited knowledge of the process, okay, to use your SOP to guide him. So that's where you will be coming up with the lacunas. Or the other way, what you can do is, it's best to have, you can see, a handful of people who would be actually testing your standard operating procedure. Now over here, when you are having a group of people, you can say different individuals will have different issues. They can come up with different areas of improvement. Okay, so allowing a wide variety of responses to improve and to see to it that you come up with a most accurate SOP. So one has to be has to make sure to test the procedure on someone who's never done it before. Anyone, why? Because anyone who has already a prior knowledge, okay, who is aware of how the procedure has to be done, then he is already aware, back of his mind, he knows the steps and he is going to follow what he has actually previously implemented, right? So picking up a person who has never done it before should be the right person to whom the SOP should be handed, and he should be testing your procedure, right? So first is testing the procedure. Second is having the SOP reviewed by those who actually do the procedures, actual performers, task doers. Okay. So at the end of the day, after you are done with your standard operating procedure, it doesn't really matter what your seniors, what your authorities, or what your bosses think about your standard operating procedures. Okay, you shouldn't be bothered by that. Okay, you should be essentially bothered by those people who actually do the work. That is what should matter you. So before you submit your work to the higher ups or to the authorities, okay, it is always a better or the best idea to show your written standard operating procedure to the people who are actually doing that, performing that job, and then come up with their comments as to what are the changes that could be made. Is there anything that has been missed out? They could be the right people to judge. Okay, so allowing them, another perspective of this step is allowing them to get involved. Okay, it's a participative learning. They feel like they are a part of the process. Okay, this will make them more likely to accept the standard operating procedures that you are working on. Okay, and it's always it has been experience has always proven that they generally have great ideas about not only improving the existing SOPs but also coming up with something new in order to make the procedure more efficient, right? So they should be the right person to bother you. Yes. So next step, have the operating procedures reviewed by your advisors, okay, who are advising you, and the quality assurance team. So once the team gives you a green signal that yes, the standard operating procedure is okay now, you can go ahead, then you have to send it across your advisors. Okay. They'll probably have less input on the actual content itself, but they will let you know if it meets the formatting requirements, if there's anything that you have missed out, and what are the protocols as such for making it an official document, okay, and inputting it into the system. So route the standard operating procedures for approvals using the, what you can say, the document management system that exists in your organization to ensure, okay, to ensure the audit trails who would be actually judging or going through verifying your document prepared and giving the necessary approvals. So now again, this process will vary from organization to organization. Basically, what is important is you want everything to meet the guidelines as well as the regulations. See to it that they are taken care of. Further, in order to justify, signatures will be necessary, and most organizations, they have no problem accepting electronic signatures, okay, with the soft copies of the documents. So have the SOP reviewed by your advisors and by the quality assurance team. Once this is done, once it is approved by your advisors and the team, then that's where actually you start implementing your standard operating procedures. So now implementation of the SOP, it may involve executing a formal training, okay, for the personnel for whom the SOP is being prepared, right? It could be a classroom training or a computer-based training, depending upon the procedure and depending upon the department for which you are preparing the SOP. Or it may also mean that that your paper, the standard operating procedure, is somewhere hung up to be referred to. Okay, whatever it is, get your work out there. You worked for it, and you have given your hardcore energy into the preparation of your SOP. So you have to be sure that your SOP remains current. Okay, it is revised from time to time. If it gets outdated, you have to keep on updating it. Get the updates reapproved. Okay, just you are aware of the changes and you put it down in the SOP will not be sufficient for others who are required to follow that SOP. So these updates are required to be reapproved, again documented, and then redistributed to the people who will be actually utilizing the standard operating procedures. Okay, why? Because ultimately your team's you can say safety, productivity, as well as the success will depend upon how good you have prepared, you have updated, you have documented, okay, and you have redistributed your SOP to the right people who are actually or who would be actually utilizing it, right? So this is about coming up with a standard operating procedures where we have broken down into 3 parts. Okay, formatting your SOP, part 1. Part 2 is actually writing down or penning it down and part 3 is ensuring success and accuracy with your SOP. So that's where we are done with this type, this part of writing of standard operating procedures, right? Now we move ahead with what do we understand by a process map? A new topic to be started? Yes. So essentially, what do we understand by a process map? Yes, anybody? Have you ever viewed such type of process maps in your organization?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it a manufacturing organization?
Yes, and the application development, we can also use a process map.
Okay. So what does a process map essentially tell you?
It's a process which can flow the exact execution of the process.
Okay. Exact execution of the process. Okay. So do you ever refer to the standard operating procedure? After having a standard operating procedure, also, do you need a process map?
For the application development life cycle, we are using the process map. We are also called it is as a streamline diagram and all.
Okay, okay, okay. So already aware of the streamline diagram. Okay, good. Okay. So a process map is okay. What are the different what you can say process maps that you have actually worked on or you have referred to? How many of them from your organization?
Mostly flowchart, streamline.
Okay. So what is that category of work that you are utilizing it? You mentioned it previously. What was that?
Application development.
Application
Yeah,
development.
and the process flow to execute the process flow and all.
Okay. Application development and application execution. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a minute. So that's where we will be having interesting process maps or SOPs that you could come up with. Okay. So a process map, as it is defined, it is a planning and a management tool, okay, that the managers use, okay, to plan and to manage, that visually describes the flow of work, to plan the work as well as to manage or to control the work. So that's where a process map could be utilized. Now, using process mapping software, if available, the process maps will show a series of events that produce an end result. A process map is also called as a flow chart or a process flow chart, a process chart or a functional process chart, functional flow chart, or it could be a process model or a workflow diagram, business flow diagram, or a process flow diagram, by whichever name you call it in the organizations. Essentially, it shows who and what is involved in a process, okay, and it can be used in any business or organization and can reveal areas essentially where a process can be improved. So most important, what you can say, uh, purpose of utilizing a process map as such. So a process map visually shows the steps of a work activity and the people essentially who are involved in carrying out each of these steps within the process, so that you are able to identify whom are you required to contact to in case anything goes wrong. So that's the reason why the people who are involved in carrying out each step they are also being mentioned in a process map. So when mapping a process, you simply draw a box for each step. Okay, you connect them with an arrow to show a flow. Or you can use an online tool as such also to create a process map. So that's where a process map looks like the diagram that is given on the slide, right? So with this, let us then move ahead with a purpose of process mapping. Okay, so what could be the purpose of creating such a map with respect to the work that is required to be done and attaching it to the personnel who are involved in doing it? What could be the purpose? Yes, anybody?
To understand the every stage of the process.
Okay, to understand every stage of process, then once the understanding is done, then okay, let us look into this one by one. The purpose of process mapping. Okay, it helps in improving the efficiency. How will it help in improving the efficiency? As you have already used to using process maps. Yes. It helps to understand the process or give an insight into the process. It helps the teams brainstorm ideas for improvement of the process. Increases the communication, which is essential not only to perform the process, but also to carry it out more effectively. And it provides a base of documentation of the process. Yes, so how is it going to improve the efficiency of a particular process? Anybody? Manufacturing department. Okay, what is a must when mass production goes on? Where we are essentially having process layouts in factories. That could be the best example to explain this. In case of mass production, okay, where demand is anticipated, it tells us, demand forecasting tells us the actual output that is required to be given in future. That's where you are balancing the entire production line. Okay, a process map could tell you with respect to the different processes that the raw material goes through in order to get developed into a finished product, to see to it that the machinery or the equipment with respect to each of the processes is being balanced. It cannot be that, say for example, in manufacturing of finished goods, there are 5 processes involved. Okay, you are introducing the raw material at the first stage. Okay, where the process 1 has a capacity of converting the raw material into WIP with respect to 100 units. Then the process B or next process, if it is having 120 units capacity, what happens is, and if you are only introducing 100 in the previous stage, so if with the unbalancing of the equipment with respect to the processes in mass production, that's where you are able to identify that yes, machinery B or process B is not, process 2 is not fully being utilized, the machinery. So that's where it is necessary to balance out the capacities of the machinery in a continuous production processes, right? That could be the best example. So that will help to improve the efficiency. Further, it will provide insight into the process. What can be done to see to it that the capacities of all the processes are being balanced? Okay. Should you be having a part of the machinery hired from outside? Can you have more of laborers to do it? And so on. It helps team the brainstorm the ideas for process improvement. Okay. The processes which are underutilized, how could they be improved? It increases the communication amongst the workers who are actually carrying out the process. Provide process documentation, and process mapping will identify the bottlenecks, the repetition, the delays, what you can say, the idle time that is associated with the processes. Okay, so that could be the purpose of process mapping. So process mapping, essentially they help to define, we can say, the boundaries of the process, the ownership of the process, the responsibilities which each and every process is required to handle, and the effective measures, or you can come up with the process metrics as such. Yes, so that's the purpose of process mapping. So one of the purpose could be to gain better understanding of the process. That's where a flow chart that was given in the previous slide was an example of process mapping to understand and to improve the process. So further, we will be coming out with such flow charts. Yes. So process mapping, apart from this, okay, apart from what is being mentioned over here, it is, as we had taken the example of balancing the processes, okay, in mass production, it helps to identify the waste, it streamlines the work processes, and it further builds better understanding thereby with respect to the processes carried out by the people. Also, it helps you to visually communicate the important details of a process rather than writing extensive directions as to what is to be done, right? So that's where, for the purpose of process mapping, we will be using flowcharts and process maps. Okay. Now these process maps, they are used for what? One, to increase the understanding of the process. Second is to analyze or to break down how a process can be improved. To, you can say, show others how a process is being done, that is with respect to the process explanation. Then improve communication between individuals who are engaged in carrying out the same process. To come up, to provide with a process documentation, and to plan the projects accordingly in future. So that's where the flow charts and the process maps can be used. Further, we look into essentially the benefits of utilizing these process maps. Okay, process maps, they can save time, and they can further, what we can say is, simplify the projects. Why? Because they not only create, but they also speed up the project design. Further, they provide visual communication, or rather effective visual communication of the ideas, of the information, as well as of the data. They help with, in case problems arise, they help in problem solving. Not only help in problem solving, but also decision making that is related to, or that needs to be done on an ongoing basis in order to solve the upcoming problems in the production processes. Then further, it helps in identifying the problems and the possible solution. So it's more or less the same. Then building economically. What do we need to build economically? The processes can be built up, solutions can be resorted to, problems can be taken care of not only quickly but also economically. It shows the processes broken down into steps. Okay, and then further they can use the symbols which are easy to follow to show these broken down processes. It shows detailed connections and sequences between the different processes of the entire production run. And it shows the entire process from beginning to end with respect to the, be it, yes, essentially with respect to manufacturing industries. So process map will help you to understand the important characteristics of the process, okay, allowing you to produce helpful data to be used in order to solve the problems that keep on cropping up while the process is actually an ongoing one. So that's where process maps, they let you strategically ask important questions that will help you to improve, the process and thereby improve on the productivity within an organization. Okay, so next time we will be essentially looking into what are the different types in which process mapping can be done. Okay, so we have looked into what do you understand by a process map. Okay, what is the purpose of process map? For what purpose they could be utilized, and what are the benefits of utilizing the process map. So next time we come up with the types of process mapping. Fine. Yes, so that's where we stop over here for today. In case those who are working and those who have already used process maps in their organization, they can always come up with examples on process mapping, right? And then we'll see what types that we are studying, where do they essentially fit into. Okay, any student, 2 students who can give me their names, who can come up with process maps. Yes, the student who had answered today that they are utilizing this process map. For what you said, application development and application execution. Can you come up with the process map for the same? Yes. Who was that? Okay. Any 2 students who are interested? Okay. So we will be having a visual aid instead in the next session for this. Fine. Okay, class. So that's where we stop over here for today. Next time we look into types of process maps. Fine. Yes. Thank you, class.
Thank you, ma'am.